Hello, I'm Jay Shadler. Anytime rape is alleged, the charge must be handled carefully to protect the rights of both the accuser and the accused. Our first story from 1997 looks at a group of college students who believed a rape had been committed and took justice into their own hands.
You're at a party. People have had a few too many. What if you now have sex? There's a chance that tomorrow your partner will say it was rape.
United to fight sexual assault! United to fight sexual assault!
Demonstrators here at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island say sexual assault is everywhere. But you may be surprised at what some people call sexual assault or rape these days. Adam Lack, a senior here at Brown, was certainly surprised. His troubles began when he went to a fraternity brother's room after a party to borrow a CD. It was dark, and it took him a moment to notice there was someone on the bed.
There was a girl moving. She looked like she was waking up.
Adam offered her a glass of water from the refrigerator in his room right next door.
She followed you to your room?
Yes.
Walked okay?
She spoke like a normal person. She walked like a normal person. There was no signs that she was drunk.
It was late, so Adam says he told her she could stay if she liked. She said she would. Then he says she kissed him.
I was pretty surprised at that moment because I didn't expect anything to happen. Eventually, I kissed her back.
He claims he only responded to her advances.
Attractive.
Who took off whose clothes?
She pulled my shirt up and began feeling my chest under my shirt.
You had sex?
Yes.
They spent the night together, talked for hours, he says.
And the next morning, what happened?
She seemed very comfortable.
Did you talk about seeing her again?
She left me her number and asked me to call.
But when they spoke again about a week later, she said she remembered little about their night together.
You told her we had sex? Did she say, oh my God?
No, she wasn't surprised by it at all.
But 5 weeks later, the girl said she'd been raped. She didn't tell the police. Instead, she complained to the university. Brown has a rule saying you may not take advantage of a student if you were aware or even should have been aware that they were impaired. Brown calls this sexual misconduct. Some call it rape. When there's drinking, students must decide who's too impaired. Decide wrong, you could be suspended. The girl's complaint said that she was so drunk that night that what Adam Lack did was, in fact, rape.
Did she act drunk?
No, not at all.
Brown's disciplinary council met here in closed-door hearings to address the girl's complaint. They found Adam guilty of sexual misconduct. Brown's dean of student life decided to suspend Adam. The girl appeared at this November rally, where she encouraged other women to speak out.
I think there's no reason that women should be afraid to come forward.
However, when we offered her a chance to tell us her side of the story, she said no. She also asked us not to use her name. At the time, the school newspaper wouldn't print her name either, but they were quick to print Adam's. They published a special edition. It came out on Adam's 21st birthday with his picture on the front page. And his life began to unravel. Students would turn away when they saw him. He got obscene phone calls and threats.
People like me don't deserve to live, that they're going to hunt me down, that they're going to kill me.
Zero tolerance! Brown Unite! Zero tolerance! Brown Unite!
There is something of an authoritarian atmosphere surrounding women's issues on this campus. At this rally, students were told the accused don't deserve the benefit of the doubt.
We don't have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt anything. We just have to say, look, is it likely that a Brown student raped another Brown student? If we think it's probably true, let's kick him off campus.
Stop sexual violence!
I got a feeling for the intolerance when the activists asked if anyone else wanted to speak. I went to the mic to ask them to explain the new definition of rape. The old definition had been force at knife point or gun point.
Actually, that has not been the normal definition of rape. Actually, about
Absolute tells us off like that. Thank you. Get off this campus. We don't want you here.
The activists decided I was asking the wrong questions. Therefore, I shouldn't be heard. They tried to drown us out.
It's appropriate behavior. We can't hear you with these people trying to drown us out. So, can I ask you why you're screaming that?
TV hype! Rape is not TV hype!
At one point, an activist decided this interview was not going the way it should go, and he simply disconnected our sound cable. So let's continue the debate in quieter circumstances. We assembled this group of students on both sides of the issue. It doesn't break down by sex. Some women support Adam.
When a person has a conversation with you, gives out information, and says, please call me the next day, and then 6 weeks later to find that you're being charged with sexual harassment, rape, it pretty much boggles my mind to think that that can happen.
Some men think Adam was wrong.
Well, when I meet somebody and they're unconscious, I don't assume that they're capable of making rational decisions.
If you had sex with her, you should be punished.
Well, yeah.
And Adam has been punished, not just probation, but by being frozen out by other students.
He is a leper on this campus.
David Josephson's a music professor at Brown. He'd never met Adam, but he started speaking out in his behalf when he saw how Adam had been treated.
All concern for justice has been drowned out in this screaming chorus of sexual assault.
Sexual assault has got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Sexual assault has got to go! Hey.
Provost James Pomerant speaks for the university.
He says he didn't know she was drunk. How is he supposed to know?
The indication is that those signals were present and could have been read, and in my view should have been read.
None of this answers the question, when is consent not real consent? When does yes not mean yes?
How drunk do you have to be?
That's hard to say. Nobody knows.
We have trained professionals who can't do that. I mean, they give cops breathalyzers because on the road, they can't visually assess whether or not somebody is just below or just above the line.
So how does this poor guy know?
If you're in a situation where you're meeting somebody, you don't know them that well, and you're just not sure, you don't do it.
Adam says he did all he could to try to hold it together, but facing the green ribbons around campus representing the fight against sexual assault, the whispers behind his back, the obscene calls before dawn, he now says he's given up. He's cleaned out his room, and he's now left Brown to go home to Iowa.
How a group of responsible adults could treat a 21-year-old student who is in our charge so shabbily, with such lack of sensitivity, astonishes me.
I made one little mistake. It wasn't a mistake that hurt anyone else. I allowed someone to have sex with me that I didn't know. I don't deserve to be punished for anything. I didn't do anything wrong.
In 1997, Adam Lack brought a lawsuit against his accuser and Brown University on grounds that included gender discrimination and libel. By 1998, the three parties had reached a confidential settlement, and Lack was living in Montana with no plans to return to Brown. Let's turn now to another school, the University of Oregon. When the university's student senate voted to require clear consent from a partner before having sex, the school had decided to regulate the bedroom to achieve justice.
It would be nice if we didn't need this kind of code, but the reality is that this university, like a lot of universities, have a problem with rape and sexual assault, and we do need to spell it out in the code.
The rules called for prior consent that included an affirmative verbal response or voluntary acts unmistakable in their meaning. Break the rules in some sexual activity could be considered sexual assault or even rape. Consent would not be considered valid if a person was high or drunk.
In the old days, no one used to have to worry about that, but nowadays things are all like politically correct, and like you have to be like, excuse me, can we have sex, you know?
For the matter was no joke. She said she was the victim of campus date rape and that the new code would have made a difference.
You feel like the university supports you. And before, I really didn't feel like I would have been supported in the situation, so I didn't report it.
Like the situation at Brown, there was a concern that the university's attempt for justice for some would violate the rights of others.
People will be falsely accused, labeled as a rapist, when they didn't commit the crime of rape in the traditional sense that most of us assume.
The university says students will get a fair hearing, but there are questions on how the policy can even be enforced.
You can't be in every bedroom or every corner or closet or outside all the time, so you can't ever really control it.
The school says it has tried to encourage students to communicate, but many are left to wonder if university justice has gone too far in the name of preventing rape. Los Angeles, there's a neighborhood typical of so many found in cities around the country. While the streets hum with commercial traffic during the day, at night they buzz with violence. As our next report from 1993 reveals, one resident, Mary Lou Holte, has fought to save her community.
The music is entitled Changes. It was composed by the woman at the keyboard of the grand piano. Mary Lou Holte uses nights out like this with her friends at Moon Shadows in exclusive Malibu to relax, to escape the ups and downs in life she's described in Changes. She's here to take a break from what she calls the war zone.
You ever thought of carrying a gun?
Never.
No? Are there many guns on the streets?
Many.
She is a one-woman crime-fighting force who patrols dangerous streets alone, on foot, at night, armed only with a notebook, a flashlight, a spray can of green paint to mark those who threaten her, and an abundance of raw courage. She has a lot to fear living alone on a disability pension. But that doesn't show on the streets, where her style is strictly confrontational when it comes to lawbreakers, no matter how minor the infraction.
There's crime in everybody's backyard. Everybody's backyard. People have just accepted this. The first word out of their mouth is, yes, I'm afraid. So I'm not going to come out at night, and I'm going to put my house up for sale, and I'm going to move to Arizona. They get to Arizona, uh-oh, whoops, gangs here too. We're losing our good neighbors, okay? The law-abiding are picking up and going somewhere. Believe me, it doesn't pay. You can run, but you can't hide. You have to face it.
She normally operates alone, but for several evenings we accompanied her using a concealed camera for everyone's safety. Remember, she's been doing this nearly every night for 5 years. Target number 1, the Townhouse Motel, where Mary Lou is convinced the management tolerates, if not encourages, crime to flourish. She's trying to shut the motel down. So every chance she gets, she stops at the office, where the night manager dreads to see her face at the check-in window. Arguments usually ensue.
You got prostitution so bad, sir, and I've told you before when I got here.
Please don't say that. I do my business legally, huh?
On this night, as usual, the manager promises to keep the illicit trade out, and, to her disbelief, turns away a prostitute trying to check in, as an example of his resolve.
No. Why? You didn't tell me that earlier. No, sorry. When you rented me the room, you didn't tell me that.
But later, when Mary Lou returns, she suspects the prostitutes are also back, and the manager calls for an assistant to order Mary Lou to leave them alone because they are clean. But their claims of going straight collapse when just outside the door, a prostitute scurries by, heading to her room. Mary Lou makes notes, sternly lectures the two men, and threatens to build a case against their motel.
You're already getting in my face. They say, I don't have prostitution, I don't have gang members, and when I'm in there talking to them, guess what comes out of the rooms?
In walks a prostitute.
Or walking out, or a gang member, or whatever. Hi, I'm back this evening. How are you doing?
At the next target, she hears a familiar theme. The manager complains Mary Lou has no right to interfere with the business.
We tried. We're trying. So what do you suggest we do? We supposed to follow all the customers into their room and make sure they're not prostitute? You're disturbing our business.
Really?
Yes.
Am I taking away from your business?
No, you're not taking away. You're disturbing us. You're disturbing us. You're disturbing our business. We don't like that.
Off the record, police tell us you are off the charts. You are totally out of control.
98% of the police officers who know me think it's great, and they wish they had 3,000 more of me.
Are you afraid?
No.
You're not?
No.
Why not?
I have seen everything out in those streets somewhere in my life. Nobody intimidates me. Nobody controls me, and nobody intimidates me.
How effective is the cleanup campaign by this unusual woman? No one can say for sure, since crime statistics aren't kept for such a small geographic area as this one neighborhood. However, police, neighbors, and many street people cheer her on. So some of those most closely touched by crime believe she is doing some good.
98% of them do not look down at me. They look up at me. Okay, I'm like a, I guess their mother out there or something. But they have somebody they trust. They don't trust the police department at all, Tom. Not at all. They trust me.
The soft side of this otherwise Iron Maiden is undoubtedly because of her own troubled childhood.
My adopted mother beat me. I mean, beat me up. Kicked my head against walls, on the floors, and the list went on with her. And the father would take me into the redwoods of Northern California and rape me.
Do you ever see yourself on the streets as a child, in the children that you see?
No, I just don't want them to get into trouble. I could have been a prostitute. I could have been a bank robber. I could have been a murderer, for that matter, with the kind of background I had.
Her success stories, as she calls them, often involve prostitutes.
I've had a success story, believe it or not, every year so far. Usually it's a prostitute who will get help, get away from the pimp, get off the drugs, get her life straight, and get into rehabilitation. Bottom line is, take back your community, take back your neighborhood, and until that's done, I'll still be out there, I guess.
In 1995, Mary Lou Holte confronted a man on Sepulveda Avenue in Van Nuys who attacked her, badly injuring her back. 3 years later, however, Holte was still patrolling her neighborhood, unarmed.
You want to hit it? My gun is my voice and my heart and the way I handle things with people. And I can go up against the hardest core criminal on the street, and they still see the heart part of me.
And Mary Lou has no plans to leave the streets anytime soon.
I think the motivation will be as long as there's people who care, people who want a safe neighborhood, people who want a better community, wherever there's somebody that needs help. I guess that's what motivates me, because I didn't get help when I was attacked.
In 1998, Mary Lou still kept a wary eye on the motels in her neighborhood.
Working with the community. You know what the whole community out here has been saying tonight? They like this community now. They love it. Except for this one place. This is the Magnet.
But the Townhouse Motel, which she had patrolled relentlessly, had fired its manager, and Mary Lou believed the owner had cleaned up his establishment.
Everything's okay now.
You feel much safer yourself?
Yes.
Yes.
Good.
I want to thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You've done a very good job.
Okay, thank you.
She's a prostitute, and that's...
Mary Lou's time and experiences patrolling her neighborhood continually remind her that her methods should not be for everyone. But she firmly believes that every citizen can do something.
I just keep my eyes and my ears open and teach others that there are... Just the simplest little thing can make a difference in your community.
There's prostitutes, hookers everywhere around here. It's all around here.
Don't be afraid to turn somebody in if they've done something, or get a license plate and turn it in, because until those things are done, the criminal element is just laughing in everybody else's face.
Lorna Arango moved back to her home state of Louisiana. She embraced a mission. As this story from 1994 reveals, she vowed to clean up corruption in her hometown.
In Louisiana, there are two kinds of swamps. This kind and the man-made kind. We mean politics. Teeming with snakes, bottom feeders, and other slimy vermin, public service in Louisiana has historically been considered the most corrupt in America. So it's saying something to single out one county, or as they say down here, parish, as the most corrupt in the state.
If you had to give the state of Louisiana an enema, you'd have to stick it in Lafourche Parish. And I did the sticking.
Lorna Arango has lived most of her life in Lafourche Parish, just southwest of New Orleans.
And one enema wouldn't do it. You'd need a whole bunch.
Well, she's not delicate, but she is accurate with her words and her weapons. Lorna, you see, is an agent of the Cajun Bureau of Investigation. She's also its founder, director, and come to think of it, only member.
Are you some sort of amateur sleuth, or are you to be taken seriously?
Well, at first, they didn't take me seriously. They said I wasn't playing with a full deck. My elevator didn't go to the top floor. I was a nut.
Are you?
Well, I'm an intelligent nut. But everything I said came true. And that's the final analysis.
No brag, just fact. In the past 5 years alone, at least a dozen public officials and lawmen have been indicted, convicted, or sent to prison for various crimes. That includes a former sheriff, former police chief, former fire chief, and former clerk of courts. In all those cases, when outside agencies like the FBI have come to Lafourche, Lorna's been waiting with a paper trail for them to follow. And with assorted unsolved murders, drug running, and arson still floating around this part of the bayou, Lorna's got plenty left to do. And just how does she do it?
Now, what bank is he with? Ha, ha, ha. Well, that's the mafia bank.
Well, while other women her age gossip at the beauty parlor, Lorna does it for serious, checking in with her network of sources up and down the bayou.
Watch out. If you could just photostat this, you see.
But her specialty is the chase, the paper chase.
Can you make me a photostat of this?
What Lorna's doing, in effect, is looking over the DA's shoulder.
I want to get a copy of this.
She claims his office is slow to prosecute friends and supporters who get in trouble with the law. So she checks on certain cases to see that justice is being done.
This is the first clue of the jigsaw. You see, I picked it up on the Daily Comet.
The Comet is the daily paper. Lorna's seen a story about a local fire department official charged with illegal wiretapping.
Let's go to criminal.
At the clerk of courts, where she's a familiar face, Lorna hits the books. First, the criminal index.
When you commit a crime, a misdemeanor or felony,
It's listed in here.
It'll be listed here.
But it's not, because it hasn't even been assigned a number, making it easy to get lost in the system.
You really have to search in here. It takes a long period of time.
That's the minutes book, where Lorna tracks the case to its dead end. It's no surprise to her that this case is now in legal limbo.
It's continued without date.
Which means what?
Which means it's going to die on the vine.
Her next step is to tell the whole parish, usually in a letter to the Comet. If they don't print it, she just buys an ad.
I want to clean up our parish, make it a better place to live in, want to get rid of some of the crooked politicians.
And she has. Just ask former Sheriff Duffy Bro. We wanted to ask him, but he's not available for interviews since he's doing a 5-year stretch in a federal prison. Seems Bro spent most of his long reign as sheriff here breaking the law instead of upholding it.
How bad really was it under Duffy Bro?
It's my opinion that for the 15 years that he was sheriff, that there was actually not a law enforcement presence within the parish.
There was no law enforcement presence?
Well, certainly not a professional presence.
Chuck Stapleton ran a 2-year FBI investigation of Duffy Bro, tracking leads on all sorts of schemes he was allegedly involved in. And Lorna dug up the dirt that finally shot the sheriff down.
Shield Land was the one that the feds got Duffy Bro and his clique on.
The scam worked like this. Shield Land Company owned this piece of property, which the sheriff's office used to store trailers repossessed for the bank. The parish paid Shield Land over $100,000 in storage fees. Trouble is, Shield was secretly owned by the sheriff and some of his deputies, so all that money went from the sheriff's office to the sheriff and his pals.
Which I did.
Lorna got the papers to prove it, then tracked down the lot.
And then I came back with my camera about 2 weeks later. There were 13 trailers here, and I took the pictures.
Chuck Stapleton says the feds got Bro on their own, and Lorna's information merely supported their evidence.
But what was important is that we have corroborative information, and Lorna was able to supply that to us through Dr. Mike.
That's Dr. Mike Robichaud, the guy giving me the swamp tour. He's Lorna's partner in crime, fighting. A native son of Lafourche Parish, he knows this swampland in all its forms, so the FBI relied heavily on him to help them navigate the political terrain. You see, along with his full-time job as the parish ear, nose, and throat man,
You sound very good.
Dr. Mike heads up the Alliance of Concerned Citizens, a grassroots watchdog group.
All right, read this one.
Usually, after Lorna finds incriminating evidence, she hands it over to Dr. Mike, who passes it on to the proper authorities.
You know, I think you know that you have a way of pushing people's buttons.
Why not? They pushed ours around for how long with all that crimes?
Well, all that pushing is evidently making somebody nervous. Lorna claims she's been shot at. And one morning recently, Dr. Mike found that someone had sprayed his office with bullets.
You're dealing with some pretty powerful and some pretty dangerous people.
Yes, I know.
You're not afraid?
No, I'm not afraid, and I'm not afraid to die.
Lorna and Dr. Mike may shrug off the risk, but bullet holes are a sobering reminder that this is a dangerous game. And she vows to keep on fighting the powers that be until her parish is corruption-free.
By 1998, former Sheriff Duffy Breaux was out of prison on supervised release after serving a 3-year sentence. While Lorna Arango carried a gun in her fight against corruption in Louisiana, a man in Florida also fed up with crime wielded a different weapon. Since 1992, Ken Donovan's Sabre has been a newspaper called the Tampa Bay Crusader that alerts the community to fugitives from the law.
Keep an eye out for it. He's in our area. It is a crusade in its truest sense. This is a crusade to get our streets back. Bad guys to look out for.
Donovan started the paper with his own money, but it now receives funding from community groups and individuals. Every month, Ken Donovan publishes 25,000 copies of the Crusader, mugshots of fugitives. He gets the pictures from the police, from bail bondsmen, even the State Department. He drops the paper off in corner stores and in barbershops.
The Crusader is free to the public because we don't want a quarter standing between somebody and being able to do the right thing.
The right thing, he says, is to read the paper and then call police if you recognize any of the fugitives. It is very simple, and it works. For every 3 photographs published, 1 fugitive is caught.
We have behind me what I call the Wall of Shame, which is 589 photographs of people who have been captured that we featured in the Crusader. But what I see there is not 589 fugitives. I see 5,000 victims that didn't happen because some lady had the courage to pick up the telephone and say, this guy lives next door to me.
Because of the Crusader, I see the community and law enforcement coming together now to work as one force to fight the crime problem.
I think it gives them 100,000 eyes out there looking for these people. And that kind of information can't be bought, it can't be budgeted. And these 2 guys, Secret Service are looking for them.
I haven't recognized anybody yet, but I'm looking. I'm sure one of these days I'm going to be able to help in some way.
2 out of every 5 Americans will be involved one day in a drunk driving accident. When that statistic became reality for one man, as our next story from 1997 explores, he hit the road to help bust drunks.
What would you do if you found yourself driving near someone like this? Someone obviously out of control. For Lewis Greenwald, there isn't any doubt.
I'm found a real bad drunk driver. I'm north of 60 now on 21.
Greenwald is not a cop. He's a private citizen with the searing passion to prevent one of the worst crimes on the road, drunk driving, something that's traditionally been left to police.
It appears that you've been drinking a little bit.
I haven't.
You haven't been drinking at all?
No,
It is past midnight. This woman has been pulled over for driving recklessly under the influence, a problem that's obvious any hour of the day or night.
I can't do this sober.
Okay.
I cannot do this at all.
As these police videos make disturbingly evident,
Well, just do the best you can here.
the drivers can't walk, they can't count, and they can't pass a sobriety test.
That's lit.
The images are blurry, but the message is clear.
Come on.
These people should not be behind the wheel. The problem is, not all of them are pulled over before they destroy their own or someone else's life.
There are many, many more drunken drivers than there are police. And the problem is huge.
So Greenwald, a retired doctor from the suburbs of Chicago, is pitching in. He founded a program called Drunk Busters, which urges private citizens who spot a drunk driver to phone police with their whereabouts. If the call results in an arrest, the drunk buster gets $100. Although there is no record of the number of calls, Greenwald says in just over a decade, they've given away $40,000. And they've received tips from thousands of other Illinois drivers who refused the money but were fed up with the drunks.
State police, we've got a DUI all over the road.
The signs are unmistakable. Dr. Greenwald has even mounted a home video camera on his dashboard to document every suspected offense. Cars swerving, hitting the shoulder and then bouncing back into the lane, tailgating, changing speeds, braking for no reason.
See how they stop on the highway? That's common.
When he spots suspicious driving, he calls police, tailing the drunk driver until the police arrive and make an arrest. Greenwald's determination can take on a desperate edge.
Yeah, we need a state police out here. I got a drunk driver northbound Kennedy, outbound Kennedy, coming up to Foster in a gray Cadillac. He's all over the road. He's going to hit the median right now.
Most of the time, police arrive and make an arrest. But other times, it takes too long and the drunk gets away.
We got a DUI all over the road. This is aim 1. Outbound Kennedy, he's coming up behind the squad.
Still other times, the chase ends in disaster. Amazingly, no one was killed this time.
Drunk driving is a crime. It's an intentional crime. It's not a mistake. When you kill someone, you maim someone, you paralyze somebody, it's a crime. It's an easily preventable crime.
Without the citizens calling in, what happens to most drunk drivers?
I would say most drunk drivers go undetected.
What about the criticism that what you're doing is taking the law into your own hands? Are you vigilantes?
I don't think so.
I think that program is basically a witch hunt. It creates false accusations and false arrests. It's an easy charge to make.
Attorney Don Ramsell thinks drunk busters are vigilantes.
I've had a number of cases where anonymous people call and accuse people of being under the influence, and I think that, frankly, it was because they wanted the money. I just don't think that's appropriate.
Hey, be careful, be careful, be careful.
That is not the opinion of those officially responsible for keeping drunks off the road. Officers like John Lawson, a 13-year veteran of the Roselle, Illinois Police Department, are grateful for the help. He approached this motorist in response to a drunk buster's tip.
Okay, whenever you're ready, sir.
1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000, 6, 1,000, 7, 1,000.
Thanks to private citizens, Lawson is one of the top 10 cops in the state making arrests of drunk drivers.
With citizens driving around looking for suspected drunk drivers, calling us on their car phones or pay phones, that is like an extra police officer out there driving around.
Here's what can happen when drunk drivers, like Mike Kenny, don't get stopped by a cop or a private citizen.
I remember just slumping over the wheel in the car making a hard left turn and a thump.
The thump was the sound of a man being killed. After 30 days in jail, he is still on probation, and his license was revoked. He's been sober since the accident.
I can't bring this man back. There's nothing I can go and say or do for the family that's going to bring him back or that's going to make them feel better about it happening. But if I can go and prevent this from happening...
That's exactly what he does 2 nights a month, volunteering his services at this program sponsored by Drunk Busters' parent organization, the Alliance Against Intoxicated Motorists, or AIM. The audience of convicted drunk drivers is required to attend by the court.
I hope all you saw my son here, Bill. Bill's 10 and a half years old. And he's been in this wheelchair for over 8 years. He was born healthy and strong. And a drunk driver put him in this wheelchair.
My life is very difficult. The worst part about being in a wheelchair is that I cannot play sports like the rest of my friends.
September 13th. 1994, my father was killed by a drunk driver.
Andrea Teagle's father was a 56-year-old motorcycle lover who had just retired from his job as a stonemason. He died when a van hit him head-on.
The thing I have the hardest time living with and makes me so mad is that he died because of a drunk driver chose to make that choice to get behind a wheel and take everything away from us.
The drunk driver who killed Andrea's father is the man who joins her here tonight, Mike Kenny.
Every time we get into a car and drive by the spot that it happens, I say a prayer and I say, I'm sorry. This will never go away. People, the victims, it'll never go away for them. Please don't drink and drive. Thank you.
In some small way, Andrea and Mike both find a bit of solace in this evening's session.
I appreciate it. Thanks for staying.
Sorry. Yes.
Really, please be careful out there.
When Justice Files returns, the women of Mothers Against Drunk Driving and a Memphis judge who practices self-styled justice from the bench. By 1998, Dr. Louis Greenwald's organization had spread beyond Illinois into 18 states. For all that Greenwald has done, his path on the roadways was paved by the nation's largest victim-led organization, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, or MADD. MADD got its start in 1980 when 13-year-old Carrie Leitner was killed by a repeat drunk driver, Clarence Bush.
When he killed my daughter Carrie on May 3rd of 1980, he was out on bail from another hit-and-run drunk driving crash 2 days before, in which he had hit another woman, and he had had 3 prior drunk driving arrests before that time. Yet when he killed my daughter, he was still driving on a valid California driver's license. I can't tell you how angry I was, and it wasn't until we were able to channel that anger in a positive direction and bring that to public attention that they decided to start changing the laws.
4 days after her daughter died, Candy fought back by founding MADD.
For every precious child, I'm lighting a candle.
With a grassroots campaign, Leitner and MADD helped put drunk driving on the nation's agenda.
White BMW 84, license 346.
Sir, I'm placing you under arrest.
I could use a break.
Taking you downtown for further processing. Come on, take your car down to the station. Watch your head.
We think it's only fair to remind you that almost 1,000 new laws have been passed to guarantee if you don't appoint a designated driver, one will be appointed for you.
And you guys just driving home?
Since 1980, MADD has been instrumental in the passage of more than 2,200 anti-drunk driving laws that have changed the drinking age, stiffened penalties, and raised arrests by 50%.
What time was the last time you had a glass of wine?
Good morning. I'm Catherine Prescott, president of Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
Catherine Prescott's son was killed by a drunk driver. In 1998, she was leading MADD, which now had more than 600 chapters and community groups. Its members continued to appear before Congress, lead rallies, campaign for sobriety checkpoints, and fight back by keeping their cause in front of the public.
So if you think that this could not happen to you or someone you love, you must know that it can, and it does, and it continues on an average at a pace of 2 deaths an hour, 48 deaths a day, and 332 deaths a week. That is the equivalent of 2 jetliners tragically crashing week after week after week.
Practitioners of self-styled justice often operate outside the legal system. But there are men and women within the law's official confines fighting to do things differently. One such man is Joe Brown, a judge in Memphis. His methods on the bench are controversial and maybe unique.
The probation department has made numerous attempts to find you, and everyone that you gave as a reference has indicated that they did not know your whereabouts. All right, I will reset this, but you're going to write 1,000 times, I will take care of my business.
Every day in his Memphis courtroom, Judge Brown devises the punishments he thinks should fit the crime.
It's a tremendous flood. You have to marshal your resources very carefully just to keep up with it. Judge Brown, he has these special counseling sessions that he holds 4 or 5 times a year, where he rounds all the probationers up, and it's just him and the probationers in the courtroom, and he sets forth.
Damn, fool, you got these babies, are you trying to raise them, or what you think you are, to stud on the slave plantation?
Malcolm X said it, you want a free man, you got to have a free mind.
But as he lectures probationers for hours and improvises sentences, Brown must respond to those who say he is stepping outside the law, not administering it.
Well, under Tennessee law, we are invited to find non-cash methods of restitution for the victims of various property theft offenses.
But has this Southern judge taken his methods too far?
I don't see it that way. What I do see is what's been tried in the past has not worked. Otherwise, if it had of, the situation would not be as it is now. Something new needs to be tried. If you keep doing the same old thing and it does not work, try something else.
What separates the responsible citizen from the vigilante? Here's Professor Arthur Miller.
We know, and the statistics prove, that a neighborhood that patrols itself is a safer neighborhood. I personally believe video cameras in the hands of citizens may be one of the great deterrents to crime. For those considering dirty deeds in the community, the truth is, you never know who's got a video camera out there. And if there are people who can videotape illegal activities without risking their own safety or that of the people they suspect are perpetrators, it can make a real difference. But people must realize that witnessing a crime or even being one of its victims does not give you the right to become judge, jury, and executioner by trying to punish the perpetrator on the street. If you do, you've crossed the line. Now, there are rare instances in which the law condones the use of deadly force because you are in great bodily danger or you see someone else gravely threatened. Otherwise, you are simply a witness whose civic responsibility is to turn to law enforcement. In short, after you've done your job by helping the community, let the professionals do their job.
I'm Jay Shadler. Thanks for being with us. Join us again as we look behind the headlines at crime, punishment, and the law on the next edition of Justice.